Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the fourth episode of the Markademics Podcast. And I'm super excited today as we're having Sebastian Szalinski being our guest today. And I'm excited because he's one of the people that I'm always looking up to when it comes to e-commerce advertising and e-commerce business in general. He's a person who has mentored me and my team into making sure that we have a great e-commerce business and as a profitable e-commerce business as possible. And I'm sure that this is going to be an amazing episode because the topic is going to be on why seven-figure e-com businesses are failing. And if you're a person who is still not in the seven-figure or eight-figure e-com business, that's going to be a golden episode for you. If you're a 7 or 8-figure e-com business, this is going to be a must-watch for you because this is going to guarantee you that you at least stay in the 7 or 8 figures or you go into 9 figures, which is going to be even better. I'm super happy that I'm having Sebastian today. And Sebastian, what would you like to say to the people that still don't know you? They should know you, but what would you say? How would you describe yourself in 2 to 3 sentences?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you very much for having me. I listened to all of your episodes before, and I really enjoyed that. And I think it's just one of the better quality podcasts out there. So I'm very happy to be on here. I'm very appreciative of that. Yeah. So quick backstory on my part. I was running a boutique agency in the past, working with a lot of awesome clients there, even corporate clients like Philipp Plein and Versace and stuff. And we pretty much shut down that agency at some point because we were just aligning our incentives with the incentives of our brands. So we are pretty much a very boutique consulting firm working with 7-figure brands, helping them cross the 8-figure barrier. And we're doing that by leveraging paid acquisition, retention, and of course recruiting. So we're actually staffing these companies to run everything in-house. And this is a topic we're going to talk later about, of course. But besides that, a little bit of context on our side. So we managed an e-com portfolio of 450 million last year, 2022. Mm-hmm. We did it with around 60 million in ad spend. And we are actively doing this stuff. So we are not only teaching about it, we're actually making our money in e-com. So everything that I'm going to share is based on real experiences on our side. It could be possible that some of the viewers have other experiences. This is just what we experienced in our company, of course. So I really don't want to be like a teacher. I just want to share what worked in the last couple of years on our side.
And that's awesome, and that's perfect because we have so many people who are asking me lately that, okay, we've scaled a brand. We started from nothing. We scaled it up. We started making 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 a month. We broke that 1 million mark, and then what we do. And that's a huge topic. So many brands right now are doing 7 and 8 figures, and people would generally think that, okay, you've succeeded. That's it. Like, you've made it. But that's not really the case. Actually, most of the problems are actually coming when you cross the 7 and 8 figure barrier. So, what's the typical experience that you're having with clients that are coming into your consulting agency? Because you're seeing so many people with different brands that are in the 7-figure ratio. What's typically, how do they look like? What's the general outline?
So, pretty much great question on that side. So, most of the 7-figure brands that we work with, we see a pretty similar structure. You most of the time have like the founder doing one of the highest leverage activities, like running ads or like doing product and doing CRM and something like that. And then you have a little bit of assistance behind that. So there are people supporting him in what he's doing, or he has someone running all the stuff on his behalf, and he has basically nothing to do because he doesn't know what the next challenges are. And the problem there is that you can pat yourself on the shoulder because you did something right in the past. But if you break it down, actually right now, you're going to experience that there is like another level required to actually make bank with it. Because after all, this stuff is not only to create impact, but to generate like some form of generational wealth that you want to give to your family. You want to support your family. You want a level of wealth for yourself because you maybe came from poor backgrounds and stuff. So you have to look at what is actually the next level that I want to take the stuff. And most of the time, you have to professionalize everything you're doing to a degree that you haven't experienced before. So your paid acquisition needs to be top notch because you can't have margin for error there, because like a 10% efficiency loss there is like 10% from your bottom line. You have to have a good customer relationship management in place because you're leaving the orbit of being just a startup brand that can just acquire new customers at will and the backend doesn't matter. And then you have to think, how is my team going to look like? Because you yourself can only take it so far. So most of the time we're actually seeing brands that have a lot of stuff going for them, but it's lacking like the scope of how this stuff should look like with a 10x in revenue. And if you just try to do everything you did up to that point, way more intensive, you are ending with like a bloated team that doesn't make sense for your case, because it's only like marginal improvements for like 10-20% efficiency on your side. So most of the time the brands we see, they're doing a lot of stuff right. They try to brute force the next level by doing more of what worked in the past. But most of the time it's transcending beyond that.
Okay, and you mentioned a few very important topics that I'm going to ask you very specific questions on the top eight,
Sure.
on the paid acquisition, on the customer managers, on the how the team is going to look like when you 10x it. But when you get started with clients and that are making already like 7 to 8 figures, what are typically the lowest hanging fruits that you're seeing in terms of it might be not ads, it might be many different things, but what's typically the thing that people are just neglecting when scaling to 7 and 8 figures?
Yeah, so first of all, I think they're just going the easy route on the ad channels that worked in the past. So maybe it's Facebook, maybe it's Google, maybe it's TikTok. They're just doing more of that part because it's just the lowest hanging fruit there. But all of the brands that we see that have healthy margins, healthy scale, and a very distributed paid acquisition, they are a diversified paid acquisition. They're running ads on multiple platforms, and they ate some dirt there to get it going on other platforms too. And you should be doing that switch not when you need it, but when everything is going so great that you have some cash flow to actually test new platforms. So one of the lowest hanging fruit we do on our clients is setting up the ads on all other platforms that they're not currently using. It could be TikTok, it could be Google. It's always like the death of Google that is neglected on the most of the brands that we are seeing.
Yeah.
And besides that, it can be TikTok, it can be Pinterest, it can be YouTube. It just totally depends on the brand. But after all, you just want to stop being reliant on just one platform. This is most of the time the case. So this is like the low-hanging fruit. The second thing is to look at the CRM that you're doing. So customer relationship management is not only sending out emails, it's actively looking at what is the buying behavior of your new to brand customers. So if you are checking who's the cohort of customers spending the most money in your store, it's breaking down what is like the typical buying experience there, what's like the first product and the second product that they're buying, and actually building out your CRM in the back end, leading up to your most valuable buyers. So
basically you're going into your CRM and you're looking at the top spenders and you're looking at their traits. Is that the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we are not just looking on repeated buying rate, because if they are just buying low value items, like I don't care, we are looking at the highest amount of repeated customer revenue and how to go after that. So oftentimes we can restructure like the back end sales by looking at the highest spenders and making sure that people who buy like a certain entry product, who typically become one of our highest spenders, they are getting treated that way. So it's not focusing on repeated customer, but it's actually looking at repeated revenue from customers. So I don't care if it's like only 2 sales, if they spend like $600 with us, if the alternative would be 8 sales for like $300.
Yeah, and that's quite interesting because almost nobody is talking about this. Everyone's looking into just the repeated ratio, and that's it. But what do you do exactly with the people that are, let's say, buying them like with the highest value? Like, what do you exactly do with them?
Yeah, so if you can identify that maybe you have a certain entry product that is pulling in the highest leverage buyers on your side, and you figure out the reason by post-purchase surveys or like actually going into discussions with the customers to see why they are buying this stuff or how often they're buying this stuff, then you can identify different levers to pull why they should be buying like different products in the future. Maybe they're buying for work-related events. Maybe they're buying because they want awesome gifts for their family. I mean, people have all of the different reasons to buy high-value stuff, and if you can identify that, you can definitely tailor maybe your email, maybe your SMS, maybe your discounts that you're giving to serve that purpose on their side.
Do you just guess it, or you, let's say, send email
Now,
forms?
we're definitely
or what do you do?
we're definitely doing post-purchase surveys, and we are definitely sending out emails to the most interesting cohort in our case, just to get to know them better. And
So
people
do you
actually
send them like a
appreciate
survey, something like that, after like?
Yeah, like a survey. If we have their phone number, we even call them.
Okay.
This like stuff that is the lowest hanging fruit, because if you have an existing customer base with a couple of thousand clients that you generated because you're doing 7 figures, you have so much data to pull from. And it's definitely looking at the back end, what are like the highest spending cohorts on your side, what SKUs are basically driving the most value, and then trying to piece everything together there.
Okay, well, that's quite interesting. So would you recommend to people that, let's say they get 20 to 50 people from their highest spenders and they just call them and ask them a bunch of questions?
Totally. Like if you can come up with the balls to do that, I would definitely do that. One of the best learnings that we actually had is calling just our customers and asking them how their experience with us been, what was the reason in buying, what was the reason why they maybe haven't bought from competitors in the past, and just getting to know them. Like it really goes a long way talking with your customers.
And that's quite interesting, because most probably these are the basically the silent ambassadors of the brand. If they bought for a lot of money, they'll be quite happy to share their experience, because they obviously like you for some reason.
Dude, totally. Just imagine you're buying like a Ferrari or a Porsche. Like you're so happy buying it. You're driving around. You're recommending to your friends. This car is so awesome. And if just the company is then calling you up and just telling you, dude, we are so hyped that you're a customer of ours. We so much appreciate your business. We just want to know, why have you bought from us and not from a competitor? Just please let us know. And then you will totally feel appreciated, and then you can definitely tell them what you're thinking behind it. Because most of the time you're banner blind if you're just marketing your own products all of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a huge problem for every e-commerce brand that I've worked with in the agency or with my own brands. It's always the fact that if you work on it for more than 6 months, you're completely blinded for many of the things that are going on.
Yeah, you have the abbreviation is COG, the curse of knowledge. You have the curse of knowledge, because you're just knowing so much about your product. But most of the new to brand customers aren't following you for more than 6 months. So you actually have to see why they're buying from you. But this is not only this is not only done for you to better understand your backend, it's also to fueling like your front-end acquisition. Because most of the time right now, we are trying to do the front-end acquisition with like code-friendly offer. That means we're driving high-ticket items. Even if one product on your store isn't high-ticket, we try to do some bundlings or just some beginner-friendly packages there for an AOV, ideally upwards $100. So we can just have the margin in spending more on the customers because ad costs are rising. And to do that, you actually have to deliver the customer what they want. I mean, like a $20 item you can sell even if they're like half asleep. It's a $20 item you can sell like every single day. But if you really want to convert like $100 AOV, you definitely have to give the prospects what they actually want. And customer survey there goes a long way in figuring out why the product can be sold, how the product can be sold, what are the angles in selling it, and what the people actually want to see buying from you.
And I'm seeing this over and over again with brands that are just complaining about the fact that the ad costs are going up, that the effectiveness of, for example, Facebook ads is just dropping. How are you tackling this? Like, what are you doing? Because cold audiences are like the lifeblood of every single business, regardless. Like, what are you doing different from what you did, let's say, 2 years ago?
Yeah, so 2 years ago, we were just ripping like cheap offers in the front end, to be honest, because the arbitrage was just still there. So we just combated the lower ad cost with lower priced products, so the impulse buy rate was high enough.
Yeah.
Right now, we try to make the CPMs work, and we do that by having more margins at the front end. We do that by those code friendly offers. So we just, on every brand, we try to push some bundles in the front end. bundles or like
Bundles.
Bundles or like different products that normally have been back-end items. Like I have no good example for that, but most of the time, some clothing brands especially have some lower ticket T-shirts or something at the front, and then some expensive hoodies and jackets in the back. And how they sold it in the past was like they were advertising with T-shirts and hoodies at the front, and once someone bought from them, they were advertising some jackets and like bomber jackets and stuff who were more expensive to them. But what we try to do is switching that up. So we really want to bring in some jacket customers at first. They spend like $300 to $400 with you, and then sell them like the stuff in the back at like the t-shirts and hoodie stuff. And if you aren't, if you are not a clothing brand, you can for sure do some bundles, like taking your best-selling products, raising the price, and slapping some free gift onto it or something like that. Doing some really cold friendly offers there. I really like doing that because Facebook is still one of the best algorithms, and if you crack the angle that can sell that, you can still push there and scale hard. But you definitely have to be over $60 AOV right now, I think.
Okay, yeah, that's quite important, regardless of whether you're selling in Germany, you're selling in the US.
Yeah.
Maybe in the US it's even higher because of the extreme CPM sometimes, especially for new brands. New brands are always experiencing terrible CPMs lately, and that's something that I'm looking into all the time. That's quite interesting. Yeah, that's quite interesting. If we get back into the how a seven-figure e-commerce business is typically looking like when they've just scaled up, they probably started a year and a half ago. They scaled up. They're either running their own ads completely on their own. They probably have a customer like support team, something like that. But you mentioned that customer management is extremely important. When it comes to the most important roles in a 7 to 8 figure business, what are you looking at in a team, and who do you think are the most important people inside of that team?
Oh, this is such an awesome question, and I really wanted to talk about that, to be honest, because on a lot of our brands we are downsizing the teams right now, and I just think it's such a interesting time doing that, because most of the time we're just building up all of these headcounts and doing some pizza parties in the office and having ping pong tables and stuff. And for some time, maybe because we're introverted, I always resented those notions in building up those awesome teams and something. But right now, everything is going to be collapsed and consolidated. And I talked about that recently at a mastermind, how our ideal team structure is looking like. And we're actually making the pivot on a lot of our brands right now. I think a 8-figure brand can be run on 3 departments, basically. If you see the product as a separate compartment that I'm not talking about, because most of the time the product side, is so different on every business. It's just 1 or 2 product guys most of the time. If you're a food startup, it's way different than if you're like a consumable product. So I'm not talking about the product side right now. We can't change that on the brand you're running. But if you're looking at all of the other team structures, I think you need, first of all, on the acquisition side, you need 1 or 2 very skilled media buyers who can run full stack, who are not doing just Facebook or just Google. You need 1 or 2 full stack media buyers there. The best thing would be if the founder or like one guy on your team validated those channels at first before bringing in a media buyer, because then he can just be connected to like the working potential on your side. So he doesn't have to start something from scratch. So he can actually judge his performance from day one. So 1 or 2 media buyers, one doing Facebook and TikTok, the other one doing Google and Pinterest or something like that, is more than enough, basically, if you just have 2 media buyers on your team. And if the founder is a media buyer, he can be one of them, to be honest. Yeah. Or if you have 2 co-founders, I totally see that. 2 media buyers is more than enough right now. The second department would be your CRM side. I am totally seeing customer relationship management as a growing department in a company. And I totally see one guy or one girl, respectively, being the head of customer relationship management. And what this person is doing is digging into your data, surveying customers, looking at how the products are sold, looking what kind of bundles we're doing, looking what kind of customer journey is there, and doing the strategy in how to improve that. We often see one person underneath them which is someone helping implement the stuff, like doing the email integration, doing the SMS stuff, writing the emails, doing the email designs and something like that. Just an all-rounder doing the strategy that was made up like above them. Having them basically could make sense at a certain scale. And you, of course, have 1 or 2 customer support reps that are working on the customer support. They are reporting to your CRM manager because he is the one or she is the one. I'm not doing like the gender right now here. I'm just naming it in a way that it's easier to say for me. Because the CRM manager has to know what the common customer support problems are in order to improve conversion on the whole process. So it just makes sense having customer support report you, the CRM guy. And the third department is definitely the creative side. Because if you're running Facebook or TikTok or YouTube, you have to have the creative in place. I really dislike having too much of the creative process outside of the company because this is the best separate. This is like the separation between the competitors. So if you're
that was
using
something I was going to ask you. Do you just recommend having it in person, in-house person doing that, or just?
Yeah. So most of the time it's in hybrid structure, like a hybrid structure. You should aim for having a creative strategist in your company. And the creative strategist is basically someone who knows how to interpret data that the media buyers are giving them and someone who knows how like the editing and sourcing of creatives works. So I really like having the top-down approach there, having a creative strategist at the top, and then having maybe content sourcing and content editing underneath them. Yeah. So that can come from different places. I mean, it can come from content creators, it can come from influencers, it can come from editors and stuff. It's just like the whole conglomerate is managed by the creative strategist because he has to translate the learnings from the media buying onto the next iteration for the creative department. And if you are working on too many projects right now, like working with influencers, sourcing your content, doing your own content, you're just losing scope of what you actually have. And most of the time, the 7-figure brands we experience don't have a content problem. They basically just have a content process problem because they have no idea what actually the content is that is needed in their case. So I really like to have that consolidated into like the creative strategist position there. And most of the time, this is a former editor that worked for a long time at the company who just knows like the ins and outs of your accounts. So to recap that, 1 or 2 media buyers are the first department, 1 CRM manager who's maybe have 1 assistant and 1 to 2 customer success guys. And the third one would be a creative strategist who is managing either the influencer route, like you can have influencer marketing managers who are just reaching out to them, or he is managing the content production, like the whole shootings and videos and editor stuff. So he is the intersection between media buying and the creative editors. This is like the ideal case on our side. And you end up with like a 6-person team and you can run an 8-figure operation by that, which I think is a very good position to be in if you just can get like the product section, of course, collapsed to 1 or 2 people. Because you should be striving to reduce your headcount on the product side too by doing just awesome products that don't require a lot of work on your side. It's just like a one-off investment and then you can roll with that for a long time. Of course, if you're like a food startup, you need someone who's like a strategic buyer who knows how to get like your resources and stuff or like the supplement space. But I think if you're just doing standard products, you can collapse that down to like 1 or 2 guys who actually know how to do that.
And from working with the agency, from working with 7 and 8-figure businesses, I've seen that typically they're like 15 to 20 people teams. And I've had this case, I remember it was like a year or something ago, where we had a watch brand that was doing 7 figures. It was doing pretty good numbers if you just look at it by the numbers, but they were losing money because they had like 25 people inside of their team. And it was crazy. They had to do crazy numbers all the time in order for them to keep the like just the standard costs that are having inside the business. So what's typically, from your experience, what are the types of positions that are employed by 7 and 8-figure businesses that are completely unneeded, or most of the times unneeded?
Yeah, great question. I think most of the time this is not like a mishiring. It's actually a wrong business structure at the first place that gets filled out by the hiring and then leads to a bloated company. Because just imagine, you don't have a working customer acquisition system in place because you're just relying on Facebook basically. But running on Google too would just bring your profit margins up by a huge part, and you would have a way easier day to day. So by doing that, you won't be needing to do like a crazy amount of content output on your media buying side. You maybe won't need to engage like a certain agency that is doing some backflips on your accounts, because your acquisition problem would be solved by doing like one of the more efficient ways there. So you would just reduce headcount there, because most of the time you're just seeing weird positions there filling voids of systems not working. So this is basically the first. The second thing is what I see in the mishiring side is focusing way too much on the organic side of like the branding of your company. Because especially if you are funded to some extent, because we work with a couple of brands who have funding there, this is the first thing the private equity or VC firms like to see, like awesome branding, doing a branding workshop and something like that. And in order to do that, they're hiring like a content creator in-house, they're hiring marketing managers that are just doing slideshow presentations or something like that and doing CI and stuff, and they're discussing like the logo colors and something like that. It sounds so wrong, but it's actually the case. Like
it's almost all the time when a company is funded.
Yeah.
It's just all of these positions that make absolutely no sense.
It's so crazy. And it's maybe like an Instagram account that has 5,000 followers, but they are spending like 2 positions every week on filling out the post and writing the captions and stuff. And then you have an over paranoid CEO who just wants to just correct all of those captions that maybe 100 people are reading. So this is... I just hate that stuff, and I think if you are guided by capital efficiency, you should be seeing that like 70% or 80% of your revenue is coming from paid acquisition, and one of the only reasons to do branding is to bring down your customer acquisition cost in the long term by appearing like more of a legend brand, because you hopefully are more of a legend brand, but you just want to have the trust factor there. But this can be solved in a sprint. Like you can hire like even like a branding strategist for a couple of months who can just revamp your branding and something, and then you can have just one social media person doing all of your branding there. So over focusing on organic stuff, I see a lot of time, because most of the time the organic stuff, of course it's nice, but it's not going to bring the scale that you want after all. So you should be spending your time at the stuff that could be bringing you the scale after all. And the third thing that I see is the founder, most of the time, it's their first company. So they have no idea on how to actually build teams and lead them. So you have a lot of churn inside your teams. And churn inside your teams has 2 problems. The first problem, of course, is that you're losing knowledge on people who are leaving your company. And the second thing is the work that was requiring a new hire, of course, doesn't get done in that time where the people are churning, and then you have the ramp time of a new person. And this is, I think, a very, very intrinsic problem. It's not a basic mishire. It's more of the time hiring too fast, having people churn because of the leadership style, and by that losing 3 to 6 months per position per year, where the work could actually be of service for the company, but is not getting done because you have personal problems there.
Oh my God, I think like my team, after the episode is up and they watch it, they'll be like, exactly, our clients are always doing this. We have a person, we work great with him, and it turns out that their boss is like just mishandling everything. They get either fired or they just quit. And then the next 3 months are terrible and nothing can get done because it's a complete chaos. And the CEO is still exactly just focusing, but I don't like the call to action in one of the Instagram stories. And they're like, let's just stop doing Instagram stories if that's going to be the way that they're done. And like, why the hell is this happening? But quite interesting topics, and I think that this is absolutely golden for everyone that's right now managing. And if you're that type of CEO, and honestly, I have been that type of CEO many times.
Me too.
As well.
It's come from experience, like of course.
Yeah, like just stop it. Just look in the mirror and just ask yourself what exactly you're doing, especially if you have a funded e-com business. That's always the case, because you have too much money and you don't focus on the important stuff. Like when you don't have money, it seems like you're always focused on performance. But if you have, let's say, 10 million or 15 million of funding, you're like, I have money for everything in the next, let's say, 1 or 2 years.
Yeah.
So-
yeah. You definitely, because you're feeling too comfortable, so you can spend time on stuff that doesn't matter. So
Yep.
you really have to be in the position of being strapped for cash and capital efficiency and working like day one there. And I mean, you deserved at some point to actually chill for a bit, but most of the time, if you have the capital and you can do some long-term strides, you still be spending half of your time thinking like you're broke, and the other half to spend on moonshots or like calculated risk, where you can take a company from that. So reminding yourself as a founder for capital efficiency in every unit economic case that you have is definitely one of the leading factors for success in the next couple of months.
Amazing. And something that I think almost nobody is talking about, but I think is extremely important, and that's to talk about consultants and mentors. And how do you work with consultants and mentors in a company? When do you think they are needed? When do you think it's a great time for what type of positions, and how to make the most out of a consultant?
Yeah.
We're always using consultants and mentors. I don't know if we're cracking the code always, but it's always nice to hear from your position as a person who is consulting many brands.
Yeah. So I myself are definitely using a lot of consulting on my business too, because I think it's one of the fastest way to grow, and you should spend your excess cash on the highest leverage activity, and oftentimes it is by doing some consulting or like some done for you stuff on processes that you like. But what I really like to see myself and our clients doing once you take over the chance of doing consulting or coaching or something is you should be doing it for a certain case. I mean, Alex Hormozy has an awesome example. Let's say you had Spanish in college or something like that. Did you have Spanish in college or something? Or another language? I mean, of course, I think you did. We of course did, the Spanish. But after all, I can't speak Spanish.
Yes, exactly. I had German. That's why I speak with you in English.
Spanish. Damn.
No, I had German. That's why.
But was your college class a scam? No. It was just not the right time for you and the right use case for you at that time, because it wasn't of service for you. If you would be looking at actually learning German the next 3 months, like a consulting or coaching at that case would be perfect for you one-on-one. For sure. It would be the perfect timing for you right now. And I think it's the same with consulting on the business side. Most of the time we are buying consulting and coaching for like general topics. But if you just have a general topic and have it in your mix, the use case is very limited. So you're maybe just seeing like an overall improvement. So after all, you have the feeling of maybe it's not working. Not that it is a scam. It's basically just not of service of you right now at that season. But I think if you really want to take up consulting, it should be in a season where you want to focus on the certain topic that you take the consulting for. So what we did 2 years ago, or I think 3 years ago, when we really wanted to crack the code for YouTube ads, I joined 3 masterminds for YouTube ads. And I just focused on that for the next 6 months. And that was my focus right there. It was only about YouTube ads. It was learning from multiple mentors there and actually showing up to the calls and asking some questions and testing it on the testing with my own budget and stuff. I wasn't just mentally masturbating learning the stuff. I was actually getting to work on it. And if you have some topics, maybe it's packet acquisition, maybe it's CRM, maybe it's business development, maybe it's doing retail, maybe it's doing B2B lead gen. Every time you want to focus on certain topics, I for sure am thinking about who can I learn from that can serve me on that case, for sure. But if I commit onto buying coaching or mentoring, I really want to focus on getting the most of that possible. And the only thing to get the most of it possible is to be focused on that topic and going through the motions and putting the reps in. So you should be looking at certain sprints that you want to be doing, and then you should tackle those topics as fast as possible ideally with someone who knows his stuff. So there are definitely certain signs where you want to sprint. Maybe it's cracking another ad platform, maybe it's cracking CRM, maybe it's business development, maybe it's hiring and leadership, maybe it's recruiting. And once you identify that bottleneck, you should go after it as hard as you can. And that means going through the books, going through the coachings, going through content, doing the free stuff, talking to other people who did that. I always had the biggest breakthroughs talking to other people.
That's amazing. And where do you find these people? How do you get in contact with such people, especially on a higher level?
Yeah, so I think most of the time it is spending time in that realm. So if you are really looking at the hiring route, for example, there are certain thought leaders on the hiring space, how to do recruiting, how to do better job posting, how to manage your team. So at first you're following the thought leaders. Maybe you're reaching out to them, and most of the time it's not successful, just reaching out to the thought leaders there. But it's also looking at who's interacting with the stuff. Who's like the better alternative? Who's like the B-level solution there? And you're just spending time in the realm to identify who's like the real deal. Most of the time when I did a rushed decision of a new topic that I haven't spent time in, I did some questionable investments in certain mentors, to be fair. But most of the time when I spend some time in the space that I want consulting and stuff on, and then I am choosing because I really like the vibe that the person is putting out or like the content that he's putting out, I always have great experiences. So if you have a topic that you want to focus on, I would definitely spend time in that realm. I would spend time studying thought leaders and what like the main selling products there are. And then I would see who's like a smaller thought leader behind that and just reaching out to them, providing value. Because most of the time they have different problems too. And if you can provide scope on the problems that you solved, you can just find a mutually beneficial arrangement there most of the time, I think. And of course, it's talking to other founders and stuff, because most of the time the problems that you're facing right now have been faced by other founders at a later stage or like an earlier stage. So you're just cycling through problems that maybe someone else is on his second cycle on different problems. So he can actually assist you on that. So staying in touch with like your colleagues, of course, makes always a lot of sense.
Masterminds are great in this. I was part of a mastermind here in Bulgaria, maybe like 2 to 3 years ago, and I was still a very young founder of a company, and that really helped me out because everyone was having different issues, but like at least someone had already solved the issue of the other person. So that's always great to have. And getting back to the 7 and 8 figure topic and into the paid acquisition, something that I'm hearing lately from almost everyone is that the buyer's behavior is changing.
Yeah.
What's up right now, especially when we're in inflation and not a stable economy, people don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. The cash is not something that you're having all the time in you when you're paying your bills and stuff like that. But how is that changing and how is that affecting businesses in general? Who is going to win from this situation?
Yeah, so this is one of the most predominant topics right now. I think if your product was selling based on the promise that the economy was going well, I mean, you were asking for trouble at first place. Yeah. So you should never aim to just sell because the economy is looking great, because people have excess cash. A lot of impulse buyers, like some fly-by-night brands, most of the time dropshipping brands and stuff, they were just selling because the market opportunity was there and because the people just had a lot of money to spend. I'm definitely seeing them having more problems right now, for sure. Yeah. And there's like not a simple solution in treating that. It's like a product problem there, where you can that you have to go after on the product level. Most of the time, I think people still want to spend money because even if times are tough, you definitely want to just buy stuff for you to feel better. And most of the problems aren't solved yet. I read that the sales of tobacco-related products are always surging in recessions, which is interesting. Yeah. Because the people just want escapism. Yes. They want to just forget about stuff. It's the same with alcohol and stuff. I'm not saying that you should sell drugs. I'm just saying that if your product is delivering some positive emotions for your client, you can definitely make it happen again on the premise of them just enjoying buying from you. So the argumentation of how to go after selling your stuff maybe has to be tailored, because
Yep.
At recessions and economic downturns, you definitely want to market more on the saving side. So if people are forced to spend a lot of money on the other brands and you can be the brand that saves something, maybe it's saving on other products, maybe it's saving on your day-to-day usage, maybe it's just saving on the product by itself. It makes a lot of sense to provide the justification for the people to spend money on your side. We were working with a cosmetic brand that is doing some sustainable shaving products, and by doing that, you don't need to buy some expensive razor blades again, which, as you know, razor blades are fucking expensive. So if you can bring it up in their head that they are now saving on all of the later purchases by purchasing your product right now, this is a great angle to go after right now. That wasn't the best-selling angle 2 years ago when everyone was pumped with stimulus checks and something. Like, it was definitely wasn't the best angle there. But right now it will be one of the most crushing angles on that case. So I'm definitely looking at the saving potential of your product and trying to put that into angles too. Because after all, people want to save money. And after all, people want to have the feeling that they are making a great deal. So if you can make that happen and you're not perceived as just like a nice-to-have product, but more than a necessity, you can for sure still make it happen and even profit from other brands being pushed out of the competition.
Do you believe in there's like a theory that you just have to survive some of those times because the competition is just going to die off and then you like basically get all of the fruits?
So we are seeing on some accounts lowering CPMs, higher CTRs, and better conversion rates for certain niches where we know the competitors are having problems. So I'm definitely seeing markets being wide open again after a certain time, because brands who were not managed correctly will definitely have problems. So if you can crack the code in the recession, spend more or like acquire more customers, it's definitely going to be a tailwind from you once the time gets better. So I'm definitely agree with your sentence.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting, and we talked about a little bit that there is a big difference between owning, let's say, a $5 million brand and $50 million brand a year. Like, how to prepare for it? How to prepare for a 10x growth? What's typically holding a product or a business back when you're doing that? Because you can't just, let's say, bump up your ad spend by 10 times. And without getting crazy cost per acquisition up and going up.
Yeah, so most of the time if you really want to 10x from that point, you either have to have a market advantage or a product advantage. If you have a crushing product, like a product that they can't get elsewhere, it's definitely possible to do a 10x based on pure product features and development of product. You see that on certain brands that just scaled hard, like Purple mattresses and stuff. It was just a revolutionary product because they were doing some high quality mattresses for the price of just $200 to $300. So they had a product advantage in comparison to the competition.
Over everyone else.
Definitely. So if you have that, I mean, you could just continue doing that and just crack on more on the front acquisition, to be honest. But you have to actually have a moat around your company where it can't be copied that easily. And I think Purple mattresses had a big patent about their memory form or something. You should, if you really want to have the push on the product level, I would definitely engage some lawyers and do some patents and stuff to see how you can secure those product advantages. We have one brand that's like one of the best-selling CBD products right now in the EU.
Okay.
And they have a pretty crazy production that can't be copied that easily. And they have some products that are just superior to the competitors. So one of the first tasks I gave that founder is to talk to every IP lawyer that he can imagine and see if they can just protect their IP and their processes for other competitors to not go after them. If you don't have a product advantage, you should be having a market advantage. And the market advantage could be that you make more profit selling it at the front end. It could be that you can make more profit retaining the customers for the longest periods of time. Or it could be to sell more products per customer or have some affiliated brands funneling into what you try to do. So you either have a lot of profit at the front end by being the highest priced player in the market. Or you have the long scope of waiting for profit from your customers, or you have some alliances like having affiliates or having other brand that you're imagining, where you can repurpose the data or like the customer data you're getting from one brand to the other. So this is like the three routes that I see. Most of the time, the first and the second one will be a mixture of both, and it's validating your unit economic case. Because if your strategy maybe is waiting for the longest period of time for profit, you should be damn sure that this actually is happening.
It's gonna happen.
Because it's a loan based on the behalf of your customers, that you are trusting the customers with the future of your business. So this is pretty strange. I think personally, if you're at 5 million, they want to actually go to 50 million, at some point you should think about bringing outside capital inside. Because for a big growth, it's just easier for you to do a couple of decisions. I mean, bootstrapping to a certain level, of course, is one of the more flexible routes. But if you want to have like an aggressive 10x after a certain case, it's most of the time a matter of taking bigger risk opportunities. And if you're taking risk opportunities, there is a possibility of you shutting down your business. And if you can mitigate that, or it's like having a line of credit, or it's having a backup plan, or having other projects that are falling into. It's not always also capital. It's more than a line of securement for your case. So you can do some big balls move there. Because doing a 10x from 5 to 50 million is just, if it would be easy, everyone would be doing it. And you have to do some crazy shit. Maybe it's some next level marketing, it's some next level product, or it's just bringing in the most lethal team you can imagine in doing that. Like recently I talked to the chief revenue officer who was bringing Organifi, the supplement brand, from 18 to 100 million. And he did that in 12 months. And it was insane. And what he did is he was so heavily focusing on YouTube ads for that case. And I think it was 7 to 8 years ago. So they weren't big spenders on YouTube ads at that time. And he was just focusing everything onto this YouTube ads angle. So he wanted to go to the market advantage. And after spending weeks and months on just YouTube ads there, I think after all, he was spending 100 grand a day on YouTube ads once he succeeded. And no one came close to that. So they had normal products, so they didn't have a product advantage, but they had a market advantage because their marketing was just next level. And in order to do that, they had the runway of doing like 6 to 12 months without success from that big focus, because they were already at 18 million per year.
You need money for that. Like you most of the times can't bootstrap that. Like you need external funding to guarantee that you can survive that 6 to 12 month period of time.
So in order to have the team in place to crush YouTube ads, he told me he had to spend 250K for like the biggest tests and validations at first. And to actually get in the talks with Google so they can support you on that scaling operation there. Because at that time, if you spent 250K per month, Google was talking to you. And he had to spend that in that case.
They still, like, they even do it for way lower, but it's like a way low quality type of... But you had to have runway for that. If you have the cash reserves in your company, definitely use them. But if you have some form of line of credit or some outside capital or something, or do a private investing round or something with friends and family, I think it's better for your creativity to have a bit of runway. That's quite interesting. And if you can, that's one of the things when you're when you're watching a podcast, you want to hear the real life stories of some brands. Can you walk us through? Because you've taken many brands from 7 to 8 figures, you've just helped them out either just by optimizing profit, or can you walk us through like a very interesting example that's like what you did for some of your clients that really helped them out?
Yeah, we can definitely do that. So I think the best example right now is like Falkenthal. Falkenthal is a German brand. They are selling...
How would you spell it? Sorry.
Yeah, it's VALKENTAL. I'm going to send you over a link.
Okay.
They are basically selling a backpack that you can put on your bicycle, that you can just link there. So you can ride your bicycle with a backpack on your backside of your bicycle, and afterwards you can put it on your back again. So it's not like a revolutionary product, but it's kind of neat, to be honest. It's a good product. Like there are some competitors, but they solved a couple of product issues that other competitors would be imagining. And once we started working with them, they were basically way too low in revenue to even work with us, but I was just vibing with the two founders. That was like the backstory there. They were at 15K per month, and they did a bit on Amazon, like I think 20K per month on Amazon too, 2.5 years ago. 2022, I think they closed the year with between 20 to 25 million in revenue.
Nice.
And
Nice.
we supported them along the way, and it was the typical best case scenario there that I think the first 6 months we just heavily invested our time and money in finding like the optimal selling system. For them it was definitely Facebook ads. So Facebook ads and Google was just their thing. Most of their audience is 40 plus, so TikTok wasn't applicable for that.
Yeah.
And Pinterest, no, because most of the buyers are men. So most of the men aren't on Pinterest, to be honest. So we just heavily focused with the two founders just on Facebook and Google. That was our first 6 months, where we, I think, ramped it up to 300K per month, I think, or like 400K per month.
What do you change? Like, what do you change in the Facebook ads? What do you change in the Google ads in order to make a difference?
Yeah, so they didn't have a creative process in place that was working with the winners, because we had a little bit of stuff that worked, but they had no process in doing more of that. And even if they did, it was just gut feeling. But what we did there is we basically strategically broke down which elements of the creatives were the one driving the revenue, finding a process in doing very cheap editing for that, and then providing the company with the option in cranking out a lot of variations of the working creatives. So at first it was a creative mechanism that we had to bring into place. Then it was just doing all of the basics on the media buying side. So doing simplified account structures, doing not of the superstitious stuff that most of the e-com brands are doing. It's more of like the bread and butter work there. And if you are combining those two elements, you can definitely take it to 300 to 400K per month. This is totally possible. Once we had that, we ran into issues with the supply chain and stuff. It was at that time where the big ship was stuck on the Suez Canal. At that time was
the evergreen one.
Yeah, we had so many problems there because basically 90% of our stock was on that boat.
Oh my god! Okay.
And there was no way in how to get it out. So what we did then is we had to build a customer relationship management, because this is just asking for trouble, selling products that you aren't having in stock and doing some bridge sales between that and pre-orders and stuff. So out of necessity, we had to talk to a lot of our customers. By doing that, we found out that there were two problems that our bag wasn't solving. So we had one of the problems was with the dirt that is collected once you ride your bike, and you have the dirt on your backpack, and then you're putting it on your back, and then you have dirt on your backpack. It's on your back. It's not nice. So we had to implement that. And the second thing is that for smaller bicycles, the bag was kind of too big. So we so people just tried it, and then they were like, okay, this bag is way too big for me to carry around. Mm-hmm. So we did a spin-off of our original bag with enforced materials and better size dimensions. And leading from that, we could sell a different product to a different audience. So we just diversified our total addressable market by finding out what made people hesitant in the first place for our main product. At that point, we brought in a media buyer to work on Facebook that was established and Google search that was established, so we can focus on YouTube. Then we focused on YouTube, which brought a huge level of scale, to be honest, because this is like the perfect ad channel for our audience, and we are selling a pretty premium too, like $80 to $90 per order. So people are actually Googling and looking for reviews on YouTube. So it was an awesome placement there. Once we focused on YouTube for like 3 months, we actually cracked the code there too, because if you're testing by iteration, you can definitely identify something that works, like for sure. In our case, we did. So at that point, the company was doing, I think, 7 million per year. And we only had one media buyer in place, 2 people in customer support, and my creative guy was doing their creative work basically. So it was a fucking lean operation. After that point, where I think 2021 ended on 5 to 7 million, we were like, okay, we have to take this stuff way more professional. So we brought in an in-house creative guy who was doing the editing and stuff, who was utilizing the stuff that my creative guy did at first. So he was, he was pretty cozy at start because he didn't have to do everything new from scratch.
Yeah.
We brought in a second media buyer to really focus on Google, to really hone that down, to optimize the data feeds and stuff, because managing Google at a high scale is like a full-time job, in my opinion. So he should be doing that. So we had a media buyer doing Facebook and all the other stuff, and we had a media buyer doing Google. We had a creative guy in there, and we had customer support, of course, there too. One of the founders was doing product, the other founder was overseeing the media buyers. And once we had that, and we were coasting at like an 8-figure revenue level, because of course we just improved everything 10 to 20%. We did some awesome sales. We did some Q4 stuff. We did some anniversary stuff for the brand. We were cranking out new products that were useful for the audience that is riding bicycles. So we did some bags for your armbar where you are holding the bicycle. So where you can just, like a small bag there. We did some jackets that are reflective for you to wear at nighttime. We did some locks for your bicycle to lock it at the nearest post office. We did a lot of stuff that was just useful for the audience we already captured to crank out more profit in the back end and to provide better quality products for them. Because you're only buying a backpack, just a bicycle backpack.
Probably just one.
Yeah, that's the thing. Or maybe 2 if you have like a second color that you want. But it's but you definitely identified yourself as someone who rides his bicycle and who loves it and who loves to spend money on his bicycle. And this is a big market, like a damn big market with the bicycles. So we had,
especially in Europe, it's a huge one.
Insane. So running multiple products there just made sense, and that was the reason why we could scale even further, because for every new product we could basically open up the ad channels from scratch again, because of course it's like a new total addressable market, a new angle that you have to go after. So our media spend just increased by nature because we had more products to spend it on. And lastly, the last impact was that we identified that it would be making sense to do the retail side. So being in offline retail stores like bicycle shops and something like that. Because if you are at that level, nearly everyone saw our ads in Germany especially. But if they can't find you in the most trustworthy stores,
they don't trust you.
Yeah, it was weird. So we just brought in 2 sales reps who were just doing outbound end-to-end sales to retail stores. Because you can scrape those info from Google. You can just call them. You can send them out samples and stuff. So the next issue was to get into retail. We had to figure out what good deal structures there.
How much time does it take to get into retail if you do it right?
Yeah, so if you're just focusing on those boutique retail stores that are managed by the owner, you can do it rather fast. It's more of a matter of the offer that you can offer them.
If they like it or not.
Yeah. What we did there is we did some care packages basically. So it was a couple of bags, it was a couple of other products, it was an example how to use the product, and a pretty no-brainer discount if he wants to order at wholesale from us. And then we did some follow-up after we received that. We asked about the quality and stuff, and to try to build a relationship with these stores. You can do that in under 3 months, definitely.
So as a minimum of 3 months would it take you to do something like that, even with the boutique ones?
Yeah, because you have to find out what are the reasons why they are buying it. You have to find out how they are buying, what are the payment terms that they need in order to order something from you, and if they can sell it or if you have to assist them in selling your product to their customers. So it's definitely like a back and forth of working with them, but I think doing 2 to 3 months is definitely a good scope to heavily focus on that, and afterwards you are in some kind of placements. And what we did there is it wasn't enough that we were there, but we also tried getting the retail shop owners to post that on social too and reposting that.
That's great social proof.
Yeah,
as well.
that's also
Okay.
social
So
proof.
since we're on the 1 hour mark,
sorry.
and I don't want to, I just want to have some quick questions.
Sure.
Because I have too many brand owners, and I've had it as well. But let's say I put you in the following situation: you're a 7 or 8 figure e-com business owner, and you start losing money. What are the first 2 to 3 things that you're looking into, that you're trying to solve?
Could you repeat that question again?
What's your psychology behind that? What do you do?
Yeah, could you please repeat the question because you were lagging at the first?
Let's say that. Okay, yeah. So if you're a 7 or 8 figure e-com business owner,
Yeah.
and you start losing money for some reason, or you're in a big downturn.
Yeah.
Let's say you're still not losing money, but you're going down there.
Yeah.
What's your mentality when that's happening?
Yeah. So first of all, it is expected rather than it should be taking you by surprise, because sometimes businesses are atrophying or like losing efficiency. This is just normal and expected. It's like running a car at like 300 kilometers per hour. Sometimes eventually something will break. It's just normal. If that stuff happened, you should really look at what is actually the mechanism for you driving revenue and losing money. So doing a big P&L analysis and seeing what in your case is overvalued and undervalued. So maybe it's overvalued that you're spending so much money on agencies because they're managing all of your stuff for you. Maybe it's undervalued that one of your guys who's doing the content is providing like a great level of scale for your media buying. But you just have this one guy and he's just part-time working for you. So if you're looking at overvaluation and undervaluation of what is driving the revenue and the profit on your side, this is a great way to start. And I always do that by driving into the P&L sheet, first of all.
Amazing.
Then it's totally scrapping everything that doesn't make sense, because it is one thing to just improve 10 to 20% month after month. This is like the noble thing to do, and I'm admiring people who have the discipline in doing that. Most of the time, I think you need some clean cuts to do like big jumps in your case. It was always the case in my company. And when we shut down our agency and we started with the growth consulting, I had to shut everything down to have a clear mind, like a clean slate for that. So if you can, you should look at what can you just eliminate. Because one way of making a car run faster is putting more horsepower on it. The other way is to strip down weight of your car, to make it lighter. And I would for sure focus on making it lighter, because this is adding to your bottom line ASAP. So this is definitely one of the first things to do. And afterwards, it's collapsing your business down to like 2 to 3 mechanisms that are delivering value in your case. I mean, you always have an acquisition machine, you always have a back-end sales machine, and you always have a customer support machine. If you can just identify what is driving those mechanisms, and then you can delete everything that is not 110% necessary for that, you should be deleting it, and you should be asking yourself, how can I make those mechanisms run smoother and more efficient? And oftentimes it's the founder stepping up in being involved in those processes again, because if they detach too much from those processes, a lot of laziness.
It stops working.
Yeah, a lot of laziness creeps into that too, because an employee can never be that committed on your case than the founder can be.
Yeah, that's normal. Like Gary Vee is always saying, like, I don't want my employees to work as hard as I work on my brand. Like, it's just not possible.
It's not possible.
And that's totally fine. And you shouldn't expect that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
As well.
So you have to step in, fix some stuff, delete a lot of stuff, and double down on the stuff that is actually driving like your growth at the first place.
I have like 200 more questions for you, but we don't have that much time. So just for the next few minutes, one of the things that my colleagues wanted to ask you as well is, what are the goals for a person like you?
Yeah.
You're a great person to follow. If people are still not following you on social media, especially if you're from the German markets, absolutely do that. I use Google Translate to always look into your content, but what are the goals of a person like Sebastian?
Yeah, so this is like a pretty crazy question, I think, because it's easy to get cocky once you have a certain level of success, and I see that sadly on a lot of colleagues, but what I like to see is I really dislike taking stuff for granted. And even if everything that we're doing right now is just staying the same. I'm more than happy because it's just awesome what we're doing with brand right now. But one of the bigger, more stupid goals that I have basically is managing like the one big B. So last year we did 450 million in portfolio revenue. I definitely want to see like 1 billion in portfolio revenue in the next couple of years. I really like that. Just because the number just sounds awesome, to be honest. And I really want to manage 100 million ad spend a year. This is like definitely a goal there. But more importantly, I think it would be, I have my holding company right now where we are investing like in some e-com brands, and we already scoped up 4 brands. I really like to see more brands added to that with a lot of potential. So, and then seeing like the KPIs and goals of those companies being crushed. So it's more like a decentralized goal setting approach right now. And I really don't want to sound cocky there because I just think the level that we're at right now is already so awesome that we can be thankful if we can just hold that. But having like a positive mindset in improving everything that you're doing, of course, makes sense too. So
what do you do in order not to be cocky? Like that's a big one. Like, and you mentioned it, and I have to ask you, what do you do when you're like way better than most of the people around you? What do you do in order for you not to be cocky or not to become like the others that have become cocky?
The thing is, if you are in this space for a longer time, you just know that eventually you're going to slap in the face. It always happens. And it's like when it rains, it pours. There is sometimes there are like seasons of everything just going so extremely right that you're just thinking you're the second coming of Christ. I had that. It was fun times, like 3 to 6 months where everything was just crushing. You were printing money, taking up all these brands. It was crazy. But every time afterwards, there are some periods of drought where you're just getting slapped in the face multiple times. And then on top of that, like taxes and the IRS something are just slapping you in the face even more. So it's making sure that you are just knowing that there will be awesome times, there will be crazy times, there will be sad times. It's just normal. Try to normalize a good standard of living, I think. And don't get it to your head because likewise, like if stuff is going wrong, you're not beating yourself up too much, which I really need to focus on because in the past, it wasn't like being a cocky problem on my side. It was more of a questioning everything when something went wrong problem on my side. Yeah.
Well, quite interesting. And last thing for this episode, who are the people that you think are going to be great next guests for the podcast, and what topics do you think are going to be extremely valuable for any e-commerce business that's making 7, 8, or 9 figures?
Yeah, I would definitely I don't have a name in my mind right now, but what I would definitely see is bringing someone in who's actually from the Gen Z and doing the TikTok organic trends. Recently, I talked to the guys doing Tabs chocolate. This is like the sex chocolate, which has pheromones in it, I think, or something like that. It's just, but they're building this brand only by TikTok organic because they're banned on every ad platform. And these are 2 very young guys. I think they're just 20 plus. Yeah. And they just have the typical scope of how those Gen Z TikTok generation is working, how their psychology works. And I think for guys like us who are like way over 20, it makes a lot of sense to just get into their minds and see what the next generation of total addressable market for you would look like. So I think that would be a funny case for you, and I can connect you with them. They're like great guys.
Perfect. Okay. Well, I had many more questions, but I'll leave it if you're available for another episode, maybe sometime in the future. It's always super interesting to talk to you, and thank you for bringing so much value into this podcast. And again, thank you very much, and hopefully it was also quite valuable for everyone who's right now in the 7 and 8 figure e-com business ratio. And if that was helpful, just let us know. And if you need coaching or consulting for your e-com business, I absolutely personally recommend Sebastian and his team. Just shout out to Yannick and Greg from Sebastian's team. Amazing people. Totally recommend them. So that's the 4th episode of the Markademics Podcast. Thank you everyone for watching and listening to the podcast. And if you have any suggestions or comments, let us know and stay tuned for more.
Perfect. Thank you very much, man. I really appreciate it.